given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Today we're going to talk about having that right mindset when you enter the job. And yes, guys, this is definitely a worthy discussion because a lot of us, we kind of just go through it. We kind of just cruise through the day, if you will. And in this profession, you really have to make sure that you have the right mindset, but more importantly, that you maintain the right mindset. And I'm going to bring on today's guest is going to be Russ Hamilton. But before I introduce Russ Hamilton, I just want to mention the three sponsors for this video. We have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to go to school, looking to get that degree, want to bring experience back into the classroom, check out American Military University. It's a great online school, and they support what we do in corrections. This video is also brought to you by Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. Guys, you definitely got to check out their site. There's a lot of cool videos up there, too, as well as videos that provide tips. And we also have the RAP. The RAP is a great resource. Russ could talk a little bit about that when I introduce him. But obviously, controlling combative subjects quickly and in an upright position so they can breathe has never been more important. Departments such as Washington, DOC, LA County, San Diego County, and hundreds of other facilities across the U.S. trust and believe in the RAP restraint. That's the RAP, W-R-A-P. Go to saferestraints.com for contact information and mention Tier Talk to receive instructor training at no cost. Lower liability to your facility and your personnel with the RAP. Give the RAP a call today at 1-800-RAP, W-R-A-P, 911. Guys, there's a link in the description of this video that's going to show you exactly what the RAP is. All right, let's get Russ on. What's up, Russ?
Hey, Anthony, how's it going?
Good, Russ. You want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, my name is Russ Hamilton. I am a retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections. Got, 27 years there. I got some more time in juvenile detention facilities, and now I work along with helping people out with regards to reentry and rehabilitation.
Welcome to the program side of things, Russ. Hey, Russ, how's Keepers of Chaos going on Facebook?
Keepers of Chaos, we're going gangbusters. New or sometimes used content every single day. Always getting on there, trying to, stoke the minds of all those corrections professionals out there to, really be thinking critically, acting decisively, getting that training in, and just trying to better yourself as a professional. I think it's important. And that's the reason that I became the founder of Keepers of Chaos.
Yeah, guys, in a couple of weeks, I'll be out in Nebraska with Connie, as well as Gary Cornelius and William Young. I'm the keynote speaker at one of the events out in Nebraska. It's going to be very interesting. I will make sure that I get some interviews when I'm there, and I'll be able to post a few of those things on the Tier Talk channel. We'll be discussing everything from leadership to manipulation to building the bridge between civilians and custody. I just think it's going to be a great time out there. I'll be there from Tuesday to Friday morning, and then I got to head right back out. And guys, don't forget, Inmate Manipulation Decoded is now available on Amazon. Link is in the description. Hey, Russ, before we go to the topic, you're familiar with the RAP, correct? Do you mind explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. My first, the first time I ever came across the RAP, it was just something that we kind of had set aside. We didn't use it very much in the juvenile department that I worked for. But then I had an opportunity to go and actually, film this class that they were going to do on it. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I'll go see this thing. And you know what? In corrections, we have a lot of different things. We have a lot of different types of, restraints and gizmos and things and stuff. But you know, I was in there and with a lot of people that I knew and had been around before because they were, you know, from my hometown, my home county of Tuolumne, it's Tuolumne County Sheriff's Department. And these guys were just, yeah, we use it all the time. I said, oh, really? Well, that's cool. And they said, oh, man, we love it. And they started talking about their uses of it and the fact that they wanted to purchase more of them and stuff. And so, you know, we did the whole video and everything, and it was great training. And then when we put that out there, I mean, I literally talked to probably 100 different people that had actually used it. And everyone was so high on it, I could hardly believe it, you know? And so I thought, well, that's fantastic. I mean, I always love when I'm, you know, bringing a product forth that, you know, really has that kind of, you know, gravitas behind it. And so anyway, you know, the people that I spoke to, almost everyone just complete glowing reviews. They said they like it better. There's a method that comes with it that you can use it like as a transport seat chair. And people were saying, oh man, that's way safer than doing some of these boss chairs and things like that, because the guy's lower to the ground, he can't tip it over, all these things. And so, you know, I was proud that I was a part of it from that point.
Yeah, and the video is a great video, guys. It's a real good breakdown of exactly what the wrap is, and it shows you, kind of breaks it down by physically showing you how the wrap works. Okay, Russ, so you came up with this topic today, which is basically having the right mindset. So where did this topic come from, and why do you think it's important?
Well, you know, I just started out, I wanted to pick a topic. And one of the things that, you know, always bothered me is, you know, some of the officers and things that you work with and stuff, really, their mindset, it's not right. It's non-existent, if you will. And the way that, you know, I like to put it to Anthony a few minutes ago and stuff is this, right? Are you going to happen to your shift, or is your shift going to happen to you? And what I mean by that is are you going to go in there? Are you going to, you know, be in the forefront of doing things that are preemptive, proactive, and, you know, really try and set the tone for everything that's going on in the day? Or are you just going to kind of, you know, observe, report, respond, and kind of let things pass you by to where you're trying to catch up? And, you know, I think I always make that case for, you know, for preempting things, for being proactive, for being out there ahead of the game, for, you know, trying to have that mental mindset where you're trying to think, what am I going to do in this shift? You know, how am I going to set the tone? What should I be doing this shift? And so I just want to go over some of the things, the way I approach it, the way I got things done, the way I tried to be in that proactive mindset, stopping things before they start.
I think that's the key too, because right now, I think that's the curse of corrections right now, especially when we have a lot of people in management that aren't proactive, they're reactive. And I think having that proactive mindset is what prevents, in this profession, preventing, being proactive is what saves lives. So it's actually very important that you do have that proactive mindset. You know, what can I do to set the tone for the day? And I think that when you go in with that proactive mindset, that mindset to prevent, that's when we wind up being the most effective, because being reactionary is pretty much waiting for the other person to make their move. And in corrections, you can't do that. You got to be the one to make the move, because at all times you are the one that's in control. So right off the bat, Russ, can we explore being proactive, being preventive?
Absolutely. So this is what I'll tell you. The way that I approach things was this: is I would kind of try and decide what my day was going to consist of. Not everyone has that luxury. You know, sometimes maybe you're stuck in culinary and there's a limit to what you can do. I always tried to be in that position in my career where, you know, I was the one to take the bull by the horns, decide what I wanted to do. And so, you know, it might begin with, I'm deciding that, okay, today I'm going to do contraband. And so in order to get myself in the right mindset, I have to decide, okay, what is going to be the most productive thing for me to do? So what I would do is I would look, you know, back through the past, you know, 10, 15, 30 days of who was getting write-ups, what they were getting written up for, what type of contraband other people were finding. And I try and use that as my guide. Maybe, I should be going to, fishing hole A or fishing hole B, and just trying to figure out how I'm going to set that tone. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, try and figure out, what my STGs are doing out there, who's been assigned to bird dog me for that day. How can I beat that individual at their own game? How can I pull some other people into this? Get some people out there that have the same proactive mindset. They want to be go-getters, and try and come up with a strategy, plans, some tactics for attacking that. And so that's the way I would start each day. Now, a lot of times you get sidetracked from that because other things happen. Sometimes you'll have fights. Sometimes, you might have an escape attempt, that kind of thing. And those things matter. But what I'm talking about here is the part where you actually get to set the tone. You get to pick what your particular activity is going to be for the day. And then you go forth and you try and produce based on what you think you should be doing.
Right. And guys, right off the bat, first off, I love what Russ is saying here, because that's kind of what we discussed a long time ago on these videos, is the what if situation. Are we running those what if situations in our head just to kind of get us ready in case something does happen? Sometimes for me, when I was driving to work at the beginning of my career, I had an hour to work. So I was preparing myself to enter that environment. And then when I was leaving work, I was kind of, leaving the environment behind. But I kind of like having that hour to work and that hour, going back home. Now, real quick, the first thing I used to remember having to deal with and getting myself ready for is, right off the bat, the ability to interact with people. When you're heading to work and you're getting ready to enter into that day of that shift, be ready. You are going to have interactions with everything from your peers to your supervisors to the inmates to the civilians. I mean, whatever department it is that you work for, but you have to be ready to have those interactions and to have that right mindset to deal with those interactions. If you're already coming into work not feeling it and just not wanting to be around people, then this may not be a good day for you to come to work. I mean, Russ, right off the bat, ability to interact with people, how important is that in corrections?
Well, you have to be ready to do everything in corrections. And, a lot of that truly is just being able to deal with people, because you're going to be taxed for your resources. You're going to be taxed from the side of the inmates. You're going to be taxed from the side of your peers. You're going to be taxed from the side of the people that you work for, your bosses. So you're going to have, a lot of stress on yourself, pulling you different directions. And so that is part of the mindset, being able to deal with that, being able to, produce, and being able to, not just react to all of these things that are going to happen to you on every given day. You want to be the one out there setting the tone. You want to be the thing happening to other people.
Yeah, I like what Russ saying about setting the tone, because with that ability to interact with people, it means that you are the one that's in control, and more so with the relationship between you and the inmate population, because a big part of your day is going to be interacting with that inmate population. So you have to be prepared for that, but at all times, you're the one that's in control of that interaction. I wasn't a real big fan of officers who just pushed inmates off and never made those interactions. Again, the interactions have to be controlled, but you are going to have interactions. Inmates are going to have to come to you, and you're going to have to be able to control that interaction. Believe it or not, guys, you're not controlling it when you just push inmates off and not really get an understanding of what's happening in the unit, the temperature, whatever it is. You are going to have those interactions. So again, the big part of the day obviously is going into that work ready to have that interaction with those inmate population. But like Russ said, they are controlled interactions. You set the tone. And Russ, there are some people that believe that they can make it their whole 8 to 16 hours without ever having to talk to an inmate, which is like, well, you're a unit officer. How are you making it 8 hours without talking to an inmate? And It's like, well, I just disregard them. I don't know. That's not part of the job. Would you agree with that, Russ? There has to be some level of controlled interaction you have with those inmates during the course of your day.
Okay, yeah. So the way that I approach inmates is like this. That is part of my preparation for what I do. Talking to those inmates and just, I mean, it can even be, helping them out. It doesn't matter, because let me tell you something. Inmates are going to tell you about what's going on, and they're going to do it in a very specific manner, and they're not even going to be a snitch, and they're not even going to realize that they are telling you what's going on. You can prime these guys, and if you can get where you can read in between the lines, you can understand a lot more about what's going on your yard. And that doesn't mean you're cultivating snitches. That means you're understanding the things that are being said, and you're understanding the things that aren't being said, and you're able to take away a better profile of what's going on in your yard. So, don't ever think that, hey, I'm going to have an easy day, an easy week, an easy month just by not having interactions. You want interactions. You want to cultivate that information. You want to be able to take the temperature of that yard. You want to be able to, have your spidey sense be alerted to the right things at the right times. And you should be using every interaction you have with inmates to be able to figure out, just a little tiny bit more about what's going on your yard.
And that kind of leads us into the next part, the awareness and observation. I mean, guys, you have to have a clear mindset going in, because you have to be focused on what could happen. You have to be able to literally pay attention to everything that's in front of you. Like a specific scenario that, like Russ is saying, is you are going to be watching hundreds of people in a yard. You cannot have your attention diverted in even just the smallest of an inch. So you have to have your mind ready. You have to be in the game. So, outside the ability to interact with people is having that mindset that, okay, this is my focus right now. This is where I need to be. At any time your focus starts to shift, you better get yourself back into the game, because one of the hardest jobs, obviously, in corrections is having to supervise what could be hundreds of people and kind of maintaining that awareness and observation to, as Russ said, to check the temperature. What's happening today? What's going on? And how do you do that? It's by literally, within your span of control, whatever it is that you're observing, whatever it is that you have to be aware of. So Russ, if your mind's not in the game, and you're coming in distracted, maybe something at home or whatnot, and you lose out on that awareness and your ability to be a constant observer of what's happening, doesn't that put everyone at risk?
Yeah, because at that point, you are literally letting that shift happen to you. And so things are going to happen. Things are going to start to develop. Maybe you're going to luck out and it's not going to be something all that serious. But when it is something serious, the quicker that you find out about it, the quicker you're able to make an impact, is going to put you in a position to actually, save lives, stop assaults, minimize the catastrophe, as it were, and probably be able to bring a successful close to it. Letting things get started and out of hand, out of control, and there's no way for you to positively impact it at the point that it gets so far. That's when, you stand a chance of, being subject of a serious assault, or someone else does. So you should never be in that mindset. The proper mindset, of course, is, first of all, having some kind of situational awareness about you. But secondly, to just, be able to say that, hey, I am here in the moment. I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to act preemptively, and I'm going to try and do what I can to further the safety and security of what's going on in my yard. So if you're not doing that, you're about to have complacency bite you in the ass.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to cross into now, we always talk about being firm, fair, consistent. Obviously, it starts with us first, how we see ourselves, and then being able to manifest that outwards. But I want to also make sure that when you're dealing with those inmates, that interaction with the population that we're preparing ourselves for, that we don't form attachments to certain inmates, that we are fair in our handling of whatever inmate it is that we're dealing with. That objective mindset is what keeps us away from those attachments that the inmates will wind up utilizing later on to manipulate or gain some level of control. So you have to also know in the back of your mind, and this to me is very, very important. I remember a lieutenant told me at the beginning of my career, if you're thinking about an inmate when you're at home, I don't care in what capacity, you're already too involved. So again, that's very good general advice here. When you're driving to work, if you're thinking about looking forward to seeing an inmate for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Or even if you're chasing after that charge and you can't wait to find out if that inmate, is going to get the sanction that you wrote, and you're not chasing after this charge to learn about, how to write a charge. You're chasing after because you want to make sure this inmate's being punished. That's going to probably eliminate some of that objectivity that you need to be balanced and fair. So again, having that objective mindset, and literally not forming attachment to the inmates, but also not retaliating if you don't get something your way. This is not a win-loss. This profession is not about a win-loss. You just do your job, and sometimes the outcome goes our way, sometimes it doesn't. But the key is our job is about the process. Are we doing what needs to be done regardless of, who's in charge of that outcome? Are we still going to do what our responsibilities are? So again, having that objective mindset, I think, is very important when dealing with the population. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, you should have an objective mindset. I was always one myself, though, is I use those conditions to push myself. I wanted to be able to do the best that I could in order to prove that charge, to find the evidence, to be able to take that evidence and put it in the report in such a way that I would be able to, adapt, overcome, and prove myself over and over and over again. So if you're invested in the process, that's good. To be invested in the process so much that you lose out on that objectivity and that you're not functioning within the confines of, policy, procedure, and the law, that's bad. But let everything else drive you, as far as I'm concerned. That's the way I did it.
Yeah, I love what you said there, though, because I agree with that. If you're chasing after the charge, not because it's personal, but you're looking to learn from it, 100%. I'm not telling you not to do that, but it's not about it being personal. Sometimes inmates are going to beat a charge. I mean, it sucks. You put a lot of effort into it and they still beat it. But again, we don't want to retaliate. So we're not chasing after the charge because we're looking at a win-loss here. If anything, if an inmate beats the charge, maybe you could do a follow-up and say, hey, how could I be better at this next time so that doesn't happen? Another thing you have to realize entering for the day is being calm under stress. Everything about corrections is stressful. I mean, the emergency situations that you're going to have to run to, whether it comes to, fights, assaults, saving an inmate's life, responding to a riot, hostage situation. I mean, there could be a lot of things in this profession that could stress you out, that could make you dread wanting to come to work. The thing here is that you have to literally, when given the chance, not so much in the moment, because when it's emergent, you really have to stay focused on what's happening in front of you. But eventually there will be that time to debrief yourself, to process what just happened and how you feel about it and how you're able to justify, what happened and maybe what I need to do to make sure that these certain things don't happen again. Kind of, if you're ever forced to react to something, I like what Russ said, this kind of blends into this, is sometimes a lot of the stress comes when we're forced to react to something that we could not prevent. Having, reacting to something now that, okay, maybe I could have done something different is what gives you that proactive mindset. So look what's happening here is that an incident occurs and we process it. We learn from it. So yes, we may have reacted this time, but next time we'll be ready and we'll be more proactive. Believe it or not, guys, having that proactive mindset prepares you and eliminates a lot of the stress of what you may have to respond to, because at that point I'm ready when it happens. So that proactive mindset can be very, very helpful in us dealing with the stresses of the everyday job. But mind you, guys, it really does matter if you find some time to process what it is that you went through. Don't be the tough person, don't, literally give yourself a chance to, okay, am I good with this? You know, am I okay with what just happened? And if you got to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. But the last thing you want to do is just not process it and keep on going into these incidences and, you know, one after the other without really giving yourself a chance to decompress. And again, it's when the situation allows it. And trust me, there'll be times when you're able to decompress. But Russ, I love how we just kind of literally almost went full circle here, because I do agree, having that proactive mindset, that mental preparation helps you deal with the anxiety or the stress of the unknown, correct?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we always want to have in our favor. When you're responding to something that's going on, the further down the chain of events before you have to, make a real decision, the better off you are. And what I mean by that is we do a lot of pre-planning in corrections, and we know who's going to respond where. We know who's going to respond and with what. Everyone knows that little dance that we do. Officer A is going to go get the direct round launcher. Officer B is going to, open the gate. Officer C is going to respond with officers D, E, E, and F, running down there to save the day. And we have all of these things in that chain of response. That's what we rely on. And we want that chain of response to go as far as we can before we hit that point that we have to actually do something that's outside of that pre-planning. And so that's where we want to be with it. And just being able to be at that point where, hey, I don't have any stress on me at all. I will later. I will in a few moments when I have to start, directing maybe some people to do something, or, maybe I have to take this inmate down and place him in cuffs. But the further down that chain we get, the better off we are.
Yes. And also, and I think we kind of touched on this, is that we have to go in with the mindset that shit could happen. And we kind of touched into this. We have to be ready to deal with those confrontations that can come our way. And guys, that's not just about preparing yourself as you're going in for the shift. I mean, this is literally, you have to maintain this all day, because at any moment something could happen, and then you have to be ready to handle it. Take control, adapt and adjust, and kind of take the reins, because if you're not handling it, then the inmates will. So again, being prepared for the worst of the worst will help you handle what will come your way throughout your day. But again, it's very important that you maintain this mindset straight throughout the day, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of confrontation. Remember, you're working in an environment where people don't want to be there. They're going to be resistant, and you have to be ready to maintain your cool, that level of professionalism, and don't let the inmates pull you out of your prescribed role, whether it's connecting with them on a personal level or just, getting so frustrated because they're being resistant. You have to expect that. You have to expect that not all the time inmates are going to be so compliant with what you have to, with the directives that you have to provide. So you have to be prepared for those no's. But again, maintain your calm, maintain your professionalism. And when worst comes to worst, you always have that backup. But Russ, right? I mean, we can't expect that our uniform is always going to get us a yes, correct?
No. And, if you're new in this, you're going to find out that, the uniform, the authority that you're given, the chance, the fact that they are, in and under, the thumb of authority buys you very little, right? There's other ways that we have to maintain and keep control, right? And so, it's being able to, project that bearing. It's being able to go in there while you're projecting that bearing, talking to these individuals, keeping those lines of communication open. And then thirdly, when all of that fails, and it's going to fail you repeatedly within your career, to be able to make those right decisions, to act decisively, think tactically, and be able to, apply that force, be able to apply that equipment, be able to call for help, be able to, get the right outcome there, right? So, you have to be functioning in all of those levels at the same time. Do we want to de-escalate? Yes, we do, but we may not be able to. Do we want to be able to just verbalize what we want the inmate to do, to gain some kind of compliance, to lessen their resistance by being able to be a good communicator? Yes, we want that too. Is it going to work 100% of the time? Well, we should be happy if we get it to work 10, 15, 20% of the time. So, it just all depends. You really have to work at this. You have to work at all of those things, everything from application of use of force to being a good talker.
Yeah, and guys, I want to go back because as we talk about confrontation, and confrontation could always lead to stress, because stress is more about what you're dealing with in the moment, and the anxiety is more about the unknown. So again, what helps out with the anxiety is having that proactive mindset. But what helps with the stress is knowing that there are certain confrontations that you may have to deal with on a daily basis. Some are expected, some aren't. The first one we're going to have is inmate-related causes. Obviously, we're going to deal with a lot of stress related to the inmate population. We just touched on that a little bit. But again, we are expecting the resistance from them. So this should be something going in that your mindset should be prepared for. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Every day is conflict. Every day is resistance, right? So what you just want to try and do is, have your mindset such that you try and deflect as much of that as you can, and that you try and put it back onto the inmate, and that you dig as deep as you can to pull out the right tool at the right moment to be able to kind of deflate that. But at the same time, I kind of say on that, good luck, right? When we're dealing with each other, when we're dealing with normal people out there on the streets, most people are not antisocial personality disorder types. And almost every inmate is. They got that way for a reason. They ended up in prison. They ended up in jail for that reason. So when you're entertaining those ideas about how you're going to deal with them with communication and stuff, it's very, very difficult. You should do it. You should practice it. You should get good at it. But understand that, a lot of times these people have that significant resistance because that's what they've been doing for their entire criminal career.
And guys, take interaction, like even what we're saying here, is a learning point, because this is what helps out that communication side. Again, we don't always have the tools to go to. So when we have someone that's being resistant, we don't automatically are able to default to what the police can do and get that taser or whatever. No, we have to literally try to communicate and still work on getting that inmate to be compliant. So I really do think that even when you have an inmate resistant, it's still a good chance for you to try to, and when I mean resist, I'm talking about passively resist. I'm not talking about aggressive. I'm talking about, an inmate that's just verbal, but again, doesn't pose a threat at that point. Work on that communication skill. Try to understand where that inmate is coming from, and then try to build that inmate back to where you need that inmate to be. Now, remember, guys, you're always in control of the dialogue, but sometimes we have to understand their perspective in order to get them to travel to ours, if that makes any sense. The other other concerns we have are also occupational causes. Actually, I'm going to read from this article that's out of Lexipol. They kind of explain this best. A job in corrections is unique from other professions in many ways. Officers are typically inside for the entirety of their shift. They're limited in what they can bring to work, and they typically cannot leave the facility for breaks or meals. Critical stress can also arise from role ambiguity. Correctional officers may be unclear as to how they're expected to balance societal expectations of inmates rehab with incarceration. And finally, as with many professions, rumors cause stress at the workplace. There are seemingly no secrets in a jail facility, and rumors can severely harm correctional officers. That last part probably is the most powerful thing that I just read. Rumors fly in a prison or a jail like you wouldn't believe. I mean, that's one of the leading causes for negative employee morale. We ourselves have to remain professional and not allow for any rumor mill to take off, because that rumor mill, all it does is isolate and divide staff. Now, the other things, you're working in a prison or a jail. Not being able to bring in stuff, that's obviously expected, because I don't think, to me, that adds to a lot of the stress. Because again, to me, if you're allowed to bring in multiple things, to me, that would be more stressful. I know there's I believe it's Kansas. I want to say it's Kansas. But give me a second. I'll figure it out, but I'll go to Russ first. But they're going to try to start allowing a pilot program where vendors and staff could start bringing in cell phones again. Now, to me, that's where it becomes a bit stressful, because now there's so much in the environment that you have to control that relates to safety and security. So for me, I'm okay with that limited stuff being brought in. And the other avenue is that balance between civilians and custody that can be very stressful. I actually find role ambiguity a little bit more with the civilians, only because they know that they're in a custody driven house. So they kind of they kind of get lost as into what they feel is expected of them, especially if custody and civilians are not communicating that well. That can add to a lot of stress, especially on the civilian side of things, where they're still trying to figure out how to maneuver in this house and trying to do it in a manner that's acceptable with safety and security. But you also have it on the adverse as well. I mean, when we make priority a program, priority is rehabilitation, then safety and security kind of has to figure its way to maneuver. But ultimately, programming exists through safety and security. It cannot be the other way around. You cannot sacrifice safety and security for programming. So I find that a lot of the role ambiguity comes from the civilian staff trying to figure out how to maneuver within this safe and secured environment. But again, if custody is involved, we can always make it happen, but not having that communication is tough. What's your thoughts on some of those occupational causes, Russ?
Yeah. So with regard to like bringing stuff in, boy, that hits a lot of officers hard, and it hits them the wrong way, because I've seen so many times where, you know, the institution has decided that they're going to set like some arbitrary size on, you know, the size of the lunchbox that you can bring in. Okay. And ostensibly, you know, they claim, oh, well, you know, it's about how much time we have to search and things like that. And, you know, and we have to tell them time and time again, yeah, well, you know, you're holding people over and over and over and not giving them a chance to eat. You're not having the vendors come in and replace stuff inside the vending machines. You decided, for instance, to completely do away with the snack bar so no one can eat there. And now you're telling people that they can't bring in enough food to feed themselves for the shift. So sometimes, yeah, I mean, it's easy to take some of this stuff personally. That was one of the things that just drove me insane, was the fact that, you know, they weren't trying to work with officers and weren't trying to see things from their point of view.
Yeah, and it is Kansas, by the way. I actually have a letter that introduces this pilot program. Maybe one day we'll devote a show to that, Russ. I'll read the letter.
Yeah, I think that they're too big an organization to go down the path that they're going there. It opens up too many Pandora's boxes in my mind. And I've been on both sides of that equation, though. I've been on the side where I was working at such a small facility that I really needed access to a phone so that I could be calling dispatch, and so that I could be calling emergency response and things like that with my phone. You know, when I was in the juvenile facility, because sometimes things would happen and I would be the ranking official on duty and in charge. But we also used to have our officers be able to carry that, but it was small. You know, we would have, you know, maybe 3 phones out there at one time, and we were able to control it. You can't do it if you're having, you know, hundreds of people come into a facility.
Yeah, definitely it's something I want to explore, because, again, we've already accepted the mindset that we're not going to have these things, and we get why. So now when you introduce these things, that itself could shift our mindset, because now we won't feel so protected. I mean, cell phones, guys. I mean, that's the easiest way for illegal activity, including threats on our lives, to be carried out. So I just feel it's not a well thought out plan, and it's something we'll discuss. The other thing we got that's pretty unique here is the organizational administrative causes. Now, guys, to be honest with you, I would like to think that we should always have good relationship with those middle managers. I have covered this over the last couple of days, right? But sometimes we do have individuals that are very positional in their leadership style and just demand as opposed to look for respect. And then what happens here is you wind up having leadership that you just can't trust. And that to me adds to a lot of that stress, knowing that I can't trust this person as my leader. They're, a CYA individual. They're a supervisor that looks to micromanage, that looks to cover their own ass all the time. And in the end, when you have a supervisor that looks to point the finger, then you're going to have staff that obviously doesn't trust that individual and then looks to hide things, as opposed to have an open environment that's a trusting environment where if we make a mistake, we're willing to own up to that mistake. Because again, mistakes are the greatest way to learn. That's where it's constructive. That's where you can learn. But when you have leadership that looks to slam down every mistake, well, now that's going to stop the growth of these individuals who can learn. Because again, you learn more from a mistake. You actually learn a lot more from mistakes than obviously successes. But again, keep on losing Russ. Hopefully he's there, but he's a little frozen right now. But hopefully he comes back. Russ is he's like a phoenix. He will rise from the ashes. I'm sure he'll get himself right back into this dialogue. But again, guys, you are going to have to prepare yourself for those interactions. Those interactions with those supervisors who they're just supervisors. They're not leaders. They're positional by nature. And they wind up just, making our day a little bit more difficult. The key here, though, when dealing with them is always be prepared to take it to that next level. If you feel that there is a supervisor that, is very CYA and doesn't do nothing to help the team grow, then, you have to be prepared to take it up a notch, document the concerns and, start holding people accountable. Hey, Russ, I know it's sad to say this, but I think part of our day, we also have to prepare that we could have those negative interactions with those supervisors and those administrators. And what I was trying to get at, because I know you froze and I had to have you come back in, was that, at that point, I mean, all you can do is, because you're going to have people that are positional by nature, we know that, is just document and do what you can to hold people accountable. If most of the time it's when we have concerns, we feel that those concerns are being ignored. One of the things that said here was both real and perceived poor leadership or management have a profound effect on stress among correctional officers. When officers feel there's a lack of understanding, a lack of communication from their management, or they lack the ability to provide input, they become increasingly dissatisfied at work. Inadequate pay and benefits, less than ideal performance evaluations, and insufficient resources can also lead to a buildup in stress. Coupled with a few confidential services, such as those specifically pertaining to mental health, these organizational causes of stress for correctional officers can and often do have a long-term ramification. So again, guys, I think the key here right now is, even though you may have that bad leadership in play, you have to do more than just vent. You have to commit to actions, which include documenting and holding people accountable, especially if you feel that the input that you have has value and that nobody's taking into account what you're saying, and those concerns that you're mentioning are safety and security concerns, at least for the most emergent concerns. Would you agree with that, Russ? All right, so we lost Russ again briefly. But I guess here, the key here, guys, is that, when you're dealing with those leaders, or those, I wouldn't even say leaders, those supervisors that don't allow you to speak, that are not invested in your concerns, and you feel those concerns are emergent by nature, yes, guys, you have to document. You have to hold people accountable, because at the end, you guys do have a voice. The front line has a very, very powerful voice. So again, if you feel that your voice isn't being heard, and, you feel that you're just being minimized and you have no value, then you need to make sure that, you document and you hold people accountable for, the things that you're trying to push up the chain, that they're just not allowing to go any further than them. And that's key, guys. I think that's a big concern today in corrections, that we're not being heard. So again, having that right mindset to get ready, and I'm going to deal with these type of supervisors, and this is what I'm going to do. This is the next step that I'm going to take. The other concern that's mentioned, and have your mindset ready for, and I think it makes sense. Oh, we do got Russ back. Let's hopefully we can keep him. Russ, you back?
Yeah, I think I'm here, kind of, sort of, in a way.
All right. So, Russ, real quick, we were just talking about the organizational administrative causes. I did say that sometimes you have to prepare yourself to deal with those supervisors that, don't step up, don't take your concerns. And if that's the case, document and hold people accountable. You have to be prepared to do that. Would you agree?
Yeah, and when you talk about that idea about someone who is positional in their thinking, just the idea that, well, you're going to do it because I said so. I think those people are short-sighted. They should be looking at people like me and others that are working that line as a resource. The kind of people that can give you great ideas, that can shortcut some really long bureaucratic red tape and be able to get you better outcomes than you probably deserve. So just, throwing those people away or throwing them under the bus or just not listening to them doesn't get you anywhere. Those are the people that you should be listening to. Those are the people that you should be cultivating for yourself to make yourself a success, because they want to make you a success too. But if you don't want to listen to them, you're gonna just put that divide in there and make them where they're an enemy instead of a friend. You want people at that lowest level as your friend. Trust and believe.
Yeah, and guys, at that front line, when you're dealing with that negative supervisor, you have to prepare to have that mindset that you may have to battle with this individual. Again, you're not looking to be disrespectful, you're not looking to be insubordinate, but you're looking to say, you know what, we have to do more than vent. That's what I'm trying to get at. So if you have a supervisor that's not listening to your concerns, you have to be ready to take it up to that next level. So be ready for that. The last mindset is psychosocial causes. Says here, correctional officers' own personality traits can be a cause of stress for them. Some may be too passive and some may be too aggressive. Either way, the potential consequences of not adjusting appropriately are very real. There's also a widespread lack of understanding about corrections and what the job entails. Misunderstanding or lack of knowledge about this job from friends and family can also create stress for officers. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on that?
That's kind of, a feature where you have to be really willing to self-monitor yourself. You have to put yourself in a position, am I being too aggressive? Am I not being aggressive enough? And you have to be able to be the kind of person that can make those adjustments. The features of like my own personality, for instance, I tend to be very much on the aggressive side. But if that's the kind of person that I'm going to be, if that's the kind of officer that I have to be in the kind of positions, the kind of areas, and the kind of situations where that is the best solution. Or I need to take myself under advisement and be able to come up with other ways to, transmit things. Like one of the things that I always did is I always wanted to, help people write good reports that would stick, where I'm using, more gray matter and, less brawn and less aggression. So, but you have to be able to switch back and forth in all of those things. And if you're not aggressive enough, you need to put yourself in positions where you learn how to use that to your ability, because someday that's going to be the thing that is going to carry the day. And I think the best thing that can be said is what you really want to do is you really want to cultivate that flexible personality, that flexible mindset, and be able to do everything well. And that's the only way you're going to make it in corrections, is to be able to do everything very, very well.
Hey, Russ, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, I had a great day today. I did a 10-mile hike with my wife, and we had a great time. So, anyway.
Hey, I just found out my book is available at the Harvard bookstore. Inmate Manipulation Decoded, now available at Harvard bookstore. So some colleges are reading it. Hopefully they don't, they don't overanalyze it. It's straight up factual, experience driven.
Yeah, they could find a way to, make the simplest thing rocket science.
But the key thing, though, guys, it's very hard to argue with someone with experience. I don't care what you've read. If you have experience, that's what, to me, takes key. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tear Talks for you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify every time I post a video. Stay safe.